Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Butt Crack Cycles, and we are doing some Ironhead stuff today. My little blue bike sitting right here behind me. It's got some stuff that needs done to it. I'll show y'all what's wrong with it. I've talked about this in a previous episode. I've got kind of a short list of stuff that needs to get done to this bike, but I'm kind of gonna push some of that stuff off and let it be a problem for future Paul. Because current Paul wants to go ride this bike. Yeah, I'm being a little impatient and not fixing stuff that I probably should, but none of it's like a super pressing need. You'll see what I mean in just a second. For right now, though, we just have one of these, what I call like joy of owning an Ironhead things. Something that should be simple and easy, but isn't. And part of the reason it isn't is because I'm an idiot. Let's go take a look. So you will notice here on the right-hand rear side of this motorcycle, we've got a tail light housing with no light bulb and no lens. Now, the reason for this is I went and rode this bike a few weeks ago and broke this. I'm not quite sure how. And so I ordered a set of tail light housings with lens covers, thinking I was just going to rob the lens cover like so and replace it. Then I realized this whole entire housing, if you see it here, down this side, it's got a crack in it and it's been squished in. I'm not entirely sure how this has happened, but this housing is no good. Here's the part though where I'm an idiot. I didn't take the time in ordering my new old part off of eBay to make sure that I ordered the right thing. The left-hand one, the one that's on the bike, is set up for a dual filament bulb. It's for an 1157. The right-hand one, the one that I bought, is for a single filament bulb. I think this is a 199 bulb. Not sure. In any event, what I'm going to do is take this one off and see if maybe I can swap sockets around some type of way, even though they're riveted in there, or make this housing work so I don't have to buy anything else. But who knows? I might end up having to spend some money anyways. The wrinkle in this, however, is that I can just barely get my hand in there. I mean, I can get my hand in there. It's fine. I've got, plenty of space between the fender and the tire, but I don't really have enough space to comfortably work in. So I'm going to need to pick the rear of this bike up. Let's walk over to where we're working, and hopefully now with the bike hanging down, with the axle hanging down, I still don't have a ton of space. I might be able to weasel that out. Let me put the camera down and grab a wrench and see what I can do here. Weasel this out of here. It's not that big of a deal to pull the back axle out and drop the back tire off. And I would do that, but A, I'm lazy, and B, this is the real reason. I got a guy bringing a twin cam bike over for me to work on, and that bike needs to sit basically right here where this one is. So I don't want to immobilize this bike right yet. There we go. Okay, housing is off. Plenty of spare wire and the bolt's still sticking through. So let's go throw this on the bench and see if we can make something out of it. So here's our two sitting on the bench. There's our new one with the single filament and the old one. You can see, like I said, it's kind of squished in at the side. Cracked. I went ahead and took the little adapter plate off. I don't know. I think what I'm going to do, I got to stop for the day because, like I said, I got to get my son. But I think what I'm going to do, just as a test, before I go spend any money, I'm going to drill out the rivets here on this old one, since this is basically just junk anyways. And if I can get this 1157 housing out easily, then maybe I'll see about transferring, not housing. If I can get the 1157 socket out easily, I'll think about doing a socket transplant. So, it's like a week later, and I did the lazy thing. I just spent some money and ordered some new parts. Time's money, and for like the 35 bucks that a new taillight housing cost me, I figured out. that was probably a better use of my time and my money than it was dicking around out here for, you know, who knows how long, 2 hours or more, trying to move one socket housing from one taillight housing to the other, only for it to maybe not work or whatever. In any event, I just ordered one. It's a Chris one. It came with a bulb, but you see how the Postal Service handled that. But it's an 1157 housing, which is what we need. So, gonna crack open a cold one. We've got a black cherry sparkling water. I'm gonna get sparkle water wasted, and head on inside of the little shed shop and work on the little golden child. Work on the Ironhead. So, despite the fact that it's only March, it's pretty hot today, so ignore the air conditioner running in the background. But I don't have the bike up on the stand. I normally jack bikes up from the other side, and I wanted this bike in here kind of kitty corner so I had more space to work. I just stripped the wires off of the bike and stripped the wires back on our new housing. Only 1157 bulb I had right now was this amber one, so that's what's in there. We'll just rest it on the exhaust. Hopefully that's a good enough ground. And I just want to make sure I hook the wires up right. So go key on and see which one is our running light, which one's turn signal. Oh, that has nothing. That might not be a good enough ground. There we go. Okay, so the right hand one is running light. Do I have the right filament? I think that's the dim filament. Let's double check. Nope. Okay. So that one is running light on this. And the right hand running light, and then that'll be our turn signal, and then this is a corresponding running light for the housing. That's all I wanted to check. All right, bike is up on the jack, obviously, and we've got the back tire wheel out of it. A few other things that I've noticed while I'm here. Always try and sort of take inventory of stuff as I'm working on it and look for other problems. The threads on this axle shaft, this probably isn't going to come through well on camera. Maybe it will. You kind of see how they're kind of getting shiny and a little bit rolled over right there. The nut was a little bit hard to come off. It didn't just break loose and then unscrew by hand. So I'm thinking probably it's time to replace this axle shaft. I always torque axle shafts with a torque wrench. I don't just wham them down with the impact or just, you know, ham fist them on as tight as I can. I always use a torque wrench on an axle shaft. With that being said, I don't know how old this axle is, and I don't know exactly how it was treated before I got it. My guess is pretty well, since this is a family bike. My uncle was the caretaker of it before me. This was my aunt's bike. I've mentioned this before on this channel many times, and he was a really good mechanic, but you know, stuff wears. I've had the axle, I've had this back wheel out of this bike, I don't know, probably 6 or 8 times over the last 3 years. So stuff wears and breaks down, so I think I'm going to order a new axle and a new axle nut. And something else that I've noticed is, and I kind of already knew about this, these back brakes are looking pretty crappy. I had this wrote down somewhere on a list of to-do for this bike, and I just kind of slipped my mind, honestly. But brake pads are pretty cheap, easy to change, and we're already here. So we'll order some brakes, order an axle nut, and come back and deal with these wires so we can have a turn signal on. And it's kind of what I meant at the start of this video when I said, you know, it's always something on one of these old Ironheads or one of these old Harleys. You kind of get started with thing A, and then as you're working on thing A, you find that things B, C, D, E, etc. also need your attention. So you can see we got our turn signal housing in there and getting all the wires and such done underneath. This isn't going to come out because it's so dark in there. Basically,
was so much easier with the back tire out of this thing. So now I've got some brake pads and an axle. I'll throw all that in there and put this bike back together and get it kind of wiped down and looking a little bit better. I'm gonna go ride this thing today. It's a really nice day. It's like 9 o'clock right now in the morning on a Saturday. It's supposed to be like 75 today. And our local technical college, community college, vocational school, whatever you want to call it, is having Tech Fest. It's their 60th anniversary of the college, and so I'm going to go to that. That's where I went for my vocational training. I think trade schools and trade jobs are very important and kind of the backbone of this country. And so while it might not be very, you know, a grunge biker chopper outlaw of me to show up to something cheesy like family technical college day, I do very strongly believe in vocational education. So I think that's a great avenue for a lot of people like myself, who everyone said, oh, you have to go to a 4-year college if you want to do anything with your life. And I tried it and I hated it and I was miserable, and found that I was a lot happier in a vocational setting. So I'm gonna ride the bike over there. Before I button this up all the way, obviously we want to just do a quick light check. And I do have something to say about these blue dot style lights. I was running these. These are like an LED replacement for an 1157. And in another video, I had someone leave a comment. They're like, the blue dots really only work with the actual incandescent bulb. It's like, oh, huh, I didn't know that. And at first I thought that they were kind of blowing smoke up my ass, but they were not. So you can see, the camera might not be directly behind it, that the blue dot works pretty doggone nice with an actual incandescent bulb. And it never did that before with these little LEDs. So whoever left that comment, thanks. You were totally correct. And yep, blinky blinky blink. So we've wired it all correctly. Just like a little tip or trick, something that has helped me, at least on this particular bike, is when I'm setting my rear chain tension and setting where the back axle sits in the dropouts of the swing arm. A lot of people say to measure like right here. Measure how far out your adjuster is and get that equal on each side. And I've done that before on this bike and other bikes, and it's worked okay. But what works better for me is taking your tape and going up to the center of the swing arm pivot and then measuring to the axle. And I find that I get the wheel centered in the back here, get the axle centered inside of the swing arm, and then therefore also inside of the fender. Much better that way. We'll double check that one more time on the ground. Try and keep the chrome not scratched. So I'm gonna end this video just riding the Ironhead around. And we're gonna do like a little bit of, you know, Ironhead and old Harley sort of philosophy, and maybe a little bit of vocational education philosophy. We went over to the technical college earlier today, this morning, hung out over there for maybe about 2 hours or so. It was a pretty good time. And it was nice to see that campus. I hadn't been on that campus in well over a decade. And so it was nice to see how things have changed, but also to see how things are still to some extent the same. But I was mostly pleased with seeing like how things have advanced and all the improvements that they've made in the facilities and the training areas and the shops. That they're not just letting it stagnate in, you know, 2010 era tech. And it appears that they've got systems and classrooms and training stuff in place that aims to train the next generation of blue-collar workers, of vocational, you know, tradesmen and tradeswomen. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can mix with a little bit of common sense and
and an adjustable wrench and a set of pliers and a screwdriver and a voltmeter. But there's a whole lot of other stuff that you need to have some computer wizardry to be able to stand a chance at fixing. And so it's nice to see that they're keeping up with the times. So that's kind of my rant about that. And my rant about Ironheads and old Harleys. Well, you know, like I started this video off talking about, there's always something. There's always something that's gonna go on one of these bikes, and that's fine. And for me, that's part of the joy of owning one of these motorcycles. I've said this before on this channel, I'll say it again. I guess to some extent, it's like a little catchphrase for me. I often say that if you are owning an old Harley, you're not just the owner of the bike, but you're its caretaker. The two of you need to be like in a symbiotic relationship. As cheesy and corny as that sounds, if you expect to just buy a 40 or 50-year-old Harley, or any bike really for that matter, and jump on it and just be able to ride it all day, day in and day out, without having ever lifted a finger to take care of it and having never maintained it or done anything to it, well, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. These bikes need care and feeding, and you need to sort of be attuned to them. You'll get to know your own individual motorcycle the more time you spend with it. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So yeah, it might be a little bit of a pain that something so simple as replacing taillight housing turns into something a little more complicated, and that, you know, I ended up having to pull the axle out and replace the axle, and I actually didn't do the brake pads yet. I think I'm going to go ahead and do a rotor along with the pads. And yeah, that's just part of owning one of these machines, though. You stand the risk of kind of opening up a can of worms every time you lay a hand on one of these, and that's not a bad thing, just so long as you understand that and know that that's what you're getting into when you own an old Harley. Shovelhead, Ironhead, Panhead, even some of the Evo stuff is getting a little long in the tooth now, though probably not as cantankerous as this old girl. But at the end of the day, you put in the sweat equity and you make the effort to do a good job of taking care of your bike. I firmly believe that it'll take care of you, and there's nothing else in the world that brings me so much joy as riding an old Harley on a nice day like today. So that's where we're going to wrap things up. I appreciate each and every one of you who watches this channel. Hopefully be starting to have some more content out a little bit regularly. I'd like to get back to 1 episode a week. Maybe we'll get back to doing 2 episodes a week like I did last spring and summer, though I'm not going to try and kill myself over it. At the end of the day, it's just YouTube. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Hope you all maybe learned something, or at the very least were just entertained. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.